This task requires you to ensure that the data being entered into the database is valid by adding formats, input masks, and validation rules. Open the database created in the previous task called Students. Select Home from the main menu and open the Students table in Design View. Referring to page 4 of Report 2, it notes that the client requires validation of IELTS scores. Add a validation rule to force the IELTS field to only allow values between 1 and 9, that's the constraint, in the validation rule property. Enter greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 9 as shown. Switch to Datasheet View and enter an invalid IELTS score, something like 25.9, and notice the error message caused by breaking the validation rule. Add validation text to customize the error message the database user sees. For example, IELTS scores are between 1.0 and 9.0. Please re-enter the score. Test the validation text by again entering invalid data into the field in Datasheet View. Next, we will add an input mask to one of the fields. The UQFYID code must be 4 letters, 2 digits, and the last 2 digits of a student's enrolment year, e.g. Wang 4512. The only way to prevent a user from entering data not in this format is to create an input mask. In the input mask field property for the UQFYID code, enter the mask LLLL0000. For further help on input masks, see the help document inputmask.docx, which can be found either in the R drive or on Moodle. Test the mask with both valid and invalid UQFYID codes. To make all the characters appear uppercase, add a greater than to make the input mask greater than LLLL0000. Test the altered input mask by entering lowercase characters in the first 4 positions. Now the date of birth field requires a little bit of work. Set the date of birth format to medium date so that the dates display in the format we want to see. Day, 3 characters for month, and then 2 numbers for year. To the DOB field, add an input mask in the field properties area to ensure that users enter dates to match the format shown on page 4 of Report 2. Use the medium date mask from the pre-selected input masks. Test your date mask by entering some valid and invalid dates. Now we need to add constraints to the date of birth field. The client requires that inappropriate birth dates are prevented from being entered, e.g. users trying to enter a birth date that is in, say, 2012. Let us say that students can study at UQFY if their age is between 17 and 65. The validation rule in the field properties for date of birth should then therefore read between 1 Jan 1950 and 31 Dec 1998. Note that dates in Access will be enclosed by the hash symbol. Test the validation rule for the DOB field. The database should now accept birth dates only for people between 17 and 65. Also note that the error message that is shown to the user who types an invalid date is not all that user-friendly, and add some sensible validation text to give a clear message explaining what they have done incorrectly. Now, while the rule we entered for the DOB field is valid for 2015, it will not work for 2016 and beyond, as the dates in it are fixed. So the validation rule must be altered to a more general formula that changes the acceptable birth date range as the current date changes. The required rule can be found in the Consultant's Report 2 on page 4. It uses the built-in date function. This returns the current system date from the computer. Then, using the fact that there are 365 days in a year, it subtracts 365 times 65 for the earlier date and 365 times 17 for the more recent date. While this is not perfect, as we have not taken into account leap years, it will not have to be changed in the future.